Oh, are you recording on QuickTime? Should I be recording on, what do I use? GarageBand?
Wait, you use GarageBand to record?
You use QuickTime to record? I didn't know you could use...
Yeah, QuickTime.
I thought QuickTime was
QuickTime
more of like
audio.
a player than a recorder.
And a recorder and a screen share tool and a screen grab tool. It's
I'm going to
great.
immediately derail this episode, which is I landed on this guy who's like a savant at playing the recorder. And truly brilliant. Like he can play like all of these different like classical compositions on it with
That's
tremendous speed and precision. But it still sounded like shit because it was a recorder, and it was just fascinating.
It's like, have you seen the people playing the Fox, Spotlight?
Oh, yeah.
But with like a flute and off.
Very easy to tell from the way that episode started that this is Getting to Market, a podcast where the job is real, but your role is negotiable. How's your week been?
It's going okay. It's a little bit of a grind, but we're there. We're getting out of it. I told somebody today, the work itself isn't bad. The week isn't going poorly or anything like that. It's just full. Like it's a lot of things and everything's okay. It's the right things, but hoof. That's how my week's been going. Hoof.
But do you ever have weeks where, and not that you are intentionally getting into conflict, but they feel contentious?
Yeah.
Yeah, those weeks kind of wear me down a little bit. And not because it's not worth like having those disagreements on calls to, figure out what the right answer is, but like it does make you more tired, I feel like, by the end.
Yeah. Yeah, they're emotionally draining, even if they're required conversations to have. They suck. Did you sing a cappella ever? You seem like maybe you were secretly in an a cappella group.
The degree to which you apparently do not know me is shocking at this point.
How could you tell me you don't know anything about me without telling me you don't know anything about me? I'm just saying, never. Like if you had a closet with a hat, like a hat and a cane, and you could sing 3-part harmony, I wouldn't be that surprised.
I would be surprised. Also, what a treat to like live in a house for whatever 5 years and find out you have a closet you haven't been using. That's true. The exciting part of that story.
The last house we lived in, there was a closet that I bet was like maybe a foot wide, solid oak door, which I thought was an interesting move, like 3-panel, but solid oak door.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those things where you're like, why does this exist? And then you just realize they built it and they're like, oh, shoot, we mismeasured where this foundation was when it was in the basement. We'll put it in a closet here. All good. And that's where he kept the guns.
Sure.
We had a hunting rifle in there and had and Christmas presents. It was guns and Christmas presents.
Same difference. Both places you want kids to sneak around it. By the way, because we're getting to holiday season, why not move up a lesson learned, which is you're getting to the point of the year where you have guests at the house that aren't normally there, or maybe you're taking your family to new houses. One, make sure your kids have seen Eddie Eagle video on YouTube. I think it's really useful. Yep. Whatever your feelings are in the NRA, I guarantee you will not find the Eddie Eagle videos offensive in any way. The other thing would be, if you are having kids at your house that you do not normally have at your house, make sure you lock that stuff up. There's absolutely no reason for anybody in today's age of being able to order a safe on Amazon for you to have unsecured firearms. Unloaded does not count. It takes very little for a kid to go on YouTube and figure out how to get your gun charged. So keep the guns away, lock them up. This is a thing everyone, I think, should be able to agree on. And if you're going to a house that you're not familiar with, just check to make sure that they are also doing the same, and make sure your kids know what to do if they encounter them.
Question for you that you can ask your visitors over the holiday season: is listening to an audiobook, does that count as reading? What do you think?
I don't count it for stuff that I listen to. So if it's an audiobook, like I feel weird about saying like I read this book, but no shade on folks that do count that in their lists.
Maybe a little shade, though. Is it still reading a book if you listen to it at 2x?
Isn't that wouldn't that be why you would do it? I mean, I just don't listen to a ton of audiobooks anymore, but...
That might be. My brain can't handle it. I can't pace with it. I was in a conversation with some friends, and they were saying that someone else had said to them, oh, they read 100 books a year. Oh, I've read my 100th book this year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that's what kind of brought up, like, is that really reading? Because we found out they're listening to it on an audiobook, and their kind of stage of life, their kids are younger. I'm like, you retained none of that.
That's why I don't like it. Truth, forget whatever, how you feel about whether or not it counts as reading. If it's not something that I'm intensely interested in, my mind immediately just starts wandering if they're talking.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah. I will say, I have a friend who she can listen to books and retain the information, and good on her.
Do you use Goodreads?
No.
I was gonna say, like, do you think that it should be like if you have listened to the audio version, your vote doesn't count as much towards the rating?
Yeah. It's like the Barry Bonds
Yeah,
asterisk in the record book.
yeah,
Bad product, good go to market. We talked about bad product last episode, where bad product is either it's just faulty, where you got to fix it, or you don't have a market because you just kind of built something out of a problem you had, but there wasn't enough people at least, and even that we could chase, or you just have a product that you're losing in competition, that sort of thing. All any of those reasons aside, you can still win market share. You can still grow with a good go to market. Is a bit was a bit our thesis. So I feel like go to market is a huge thing. That means a lot of things to everybody. What does go to market mean to you? What's all encapsulated in go to market?
to me, it's everything about what you're selling and who you're selling it to and how you're trying to sell it. So it's where it fits into the broader landscape of other things they might be looking at. It's how you describe the value of it to these folks, and it's the folks that you're trying to sell it to. Like a lot of times, who we're initially having conversations with, or who sales is having conversations with, is not the necessarily economic buyer. They're the champion. And so you've got all of these different people you're trying to send these different messages to that kind of explain the different values of the product that are more relevant to them. And then it kind of within all that is like there's pricing, packaging considerations that affect your go-to-market. And so the idea that you're trying to get at is like you can have a product that is less than optimal. It doesn't really mean that it's not going to sell. And it doesn't even mean that it's not like hitting the goals that your business is trying to hit with it. So one of the things that came up on the last episode was we were defining what a bad product is. And I think where we've got to kind of reorient now is changing that definition. We're going to like move the goalpost a little bit, because your definition of bad product was it's not selling. I think here we're saying it's possible that you can have a bad product that is, I don't know, are we saying that it's selling okay or well enough that you're hitting your goals, or what, how do we want to define it?
I talked about this metaphor of levers a lot.
Yeah.
Make it when you're not winning on on features alone and really in that competitive space, the product isn't always the easiest thing or the best thing to change or the only thing. There are other things that you can change to get to the outcome. And so that's where it fits in my head is go to market.
Yeah.
And even all those breakdowns like you're talking about, like kind of the who, the how, the when, the what, the who, the how. That's just all the W's. Like how you talk about it is the what the messaging, you can change that to get, and who you talk to, maybe you're talking to the wrong buyer, the wrong user, that sort of thing, let alone how you position it, and, to say nothing of a go to market. But
I would say this is kind of the situation you want to be in, right? Whether or not it's a good product or a bad product, you want your go to market to be kind of outperforming. I guess we could look at like the downstream implications of something that is like too good go to market, where you're probably seeing maybe some dissonance then in what customers are experiencing, and then they might have higher churn rates or something for that type of product. But I think the idea is your go-to-market can make up for some of the gaps or ugliness that might live in the product. It's helpful if the product isn't flat out broken, right? Like I think that's part of it. The other component too is you can know the customers and sit closer to the customers maybe than some of these other products in your competitor field. And if you have a good line of sight on where your competitors' weaknesses are, and you can speak to those really effectively to those prospects, that gives you a leg up. So competitive intel can play a part in that, and how you're enabling sellers to be able to sell into those folks. The other thing that can be helpful in that too is just the idea that the way that you price and package things can include things that maybe provide some additional value at a price point that is competitive in a way that just that in and of itself is like they're willing to sacrifice on some of the usability of some of these other features, but they get a couple of these extra things that are really valuable to them. And so how the pricing and packaging works can lend itself an advantage. And that's something like we... it's its own kind of discipline, pricing and packaging. Another example is just like doing a better job of getting to the right people, right? Like we think about AEO, or just how,
What's
digital spend
AEO?
works. AEO is answer engine optimization. The idea that like if you search now in Google, it's basically aggregating an answer with AI at the top.
Yep.
Or
Yep.
the idea that you can just use, generative AI to answer questions about which solution you should get. All of those tools can help you get a leg up where maybe your competitor isn't doing a good job. So you can kind of do a better job of representing the value of your product in a way that's more effective and efficient than what your competitor's doing.
You brought up a really good example of pricing and packaging. When I thought of this earlier, what's a bad product that's still got a good go to market? For everything that Microsoft is doing really well, some of their products not so great. Meaning, if you look at just Power BI, and this is going to sound a little crazy, and I know there's a whole cohort of folks that are like Power BI fans, great tools. Power BI, if you look at it just as a dashboarding tool against everything else, would likely lose
Sure.
in competitive feature by feature, but they are
Yeah.
winning, and they're winning significantly
Yeah.
because of the go to market. Excellent
Yeah.
go to market. Exactly what you brought up. Like the pricing is mostly
Yeah.
hidden in the price of the users, that sort of thing. So,
Yeah.
what are examples I like to talk about? Like, hey, you can price and packaging, you can message, you can get really focused on who you sell to and who you direct.
Yeah.
Do you have examples of how you changed a messaging to increase go-to-market success?
I will pause real quick just on that thought because you brought up Power BI, which I think is when we talk about pricing and packaging too, it's simplicity, right? Because it's not just Power BI. So if an IT org is looking at all of the Microsoft suite and they're a Microsoft shop through and through, it makes sense to have Teams rather than Slack, right?
Yep.
Like, why wouldn't you? At any rate. So, okay, pricing, packaging, let's set that aside for a minute. What are some of the other things? So, from a messaging standpoint, right, like we kind of reworked how we did our messaging. And I don't know that we could really tie it out to specific changes in the bookings or pipeline performance, but we adapted, thanks to my mentor, Brian Moderum, shout out, Brian.
Shout out.
The Make It Punchy by Emma Stratton VBF framework, which is all around like switching the order of how you talk about the value of things and how you message, which is go to just some random B2B website. It's very feature focused, and you have to do a lot of reading to figure out what does this thing actually deliver for folks? What's the value of it? And her whole thing is like we turn it on its head. So we go value first, then you talk about the benefit, and then you get into the feature. But a lot of times, and it's just kind of the way that I think the product team is thinking about things, you're building a feature. You're focused on that feature. Your go-to-market is, I need to take this feature to the market and let people know that this exists. They're going to be super excited because they've been waiting for this feature. Where we lose the thesis a little bit is, I'm looking for value from this feature, not just the feature itself.
Have you ever read through a B2B company site and read it and then almost made a judgment call on their marketing just based on that?
There's a thing of like, I'm combing through the website trying to find if this product does this specific thing I'm trying to get it to do, and I can't tell. And that's frustrating, right?
It reminds me of, I think it's called Conway's Law. Do you know about this?
No. Is this Tim Conway?
No, well, maybe it is. I don't know the person's first name. If I'm remembering right, it's Conway's Law. The general concept is that the way that your organization communicates actually translates into your product. And so if you have these disjointed, weird conversations and structure, I think it's actually that the organization structure gets reflected in the products you sell.
Okay.
And so it's a similar enough idea where kind of a maturity model in the way that you're thinking about your products will show up on the website, obviously, but that you can make some pretty big guesses as to the size and org and maturity of that company.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, intuitively, it seems to track. But yeah, I think for sure there are ways that whether or not your product has a real competitive advantage, your go-to-market can. And so there's no reason not to exploit that.
Other examples of kind of go-to-market changes, what are other things that you've changed or done to increase targets without necessarily changing the product, just in that go-to-market space?
I think it's very easy for companies of any size to end up inadvertently, like whether or not they're targeting the right people and whether or not their ICP is actually accurate. And so I think you can better define and continue refining your ICP, and that's affecting where you're spending your digital spend and other marketing dollars at the events you go to, everything, right?
Sure.
Where you're targeting the people and whether or not you're meeting them where they are. that can have a huge impact too, and competitively, right? Because you're spending your dollars more efficiently than a competitor is, and so they're wasting more of their spend. Whether it's, you know, maybe they're like a startup and they have a limited runway, and so they're wasting money trying to get the wrong people, and you've figured out a better way to get to those people. Again, that's like a huge competitive advantage too. So, yeah.
I'm smiling. You got me thinking about how you can almost like guerrilla warfare get a competitor to spend all their money on the wrong thing while you just go someplace else.
Lessons learned, John. What was your lesson learned?
Lessons learned. So I learned about typing and fonts. Do you do two spaces after a period?
You know, I stopped doing that. I did do it for the longest because we
Really?
were trained. Literally, I think you would get for a while, depending on like, I can't remember if it was high school or college, but like you'd get dinged point wise
Yep.
if you didn't put double spaces. Like
Yeah.
we were like, forget how you feel about what it looks like. I mean, I'm not going to lose points on a paper because I don't want to follow their rules because I feel so strongly about one space versus two, right? Like,
Right.
you'd
Right.
follow the rules, right? So yeah, I mean, I did stop it though because I think default it would start like flagging it in Word or whatever when you
Yeah.
did too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember the year that switched? That'd be weird if you did, but you know weird things. Do you know when that changed?
Early 2010s, somewhere
That's
around there, maybe.
interesting.
I don't know,
So
somewhere around there.
what I learned is that the entire genesis of that is from typewriters.
Yeah.
Where they mechanically
Monotype, yeah.
Monotype didn't have the ability to add that second thing. So to make it look equally spaced as you go, you had to hit the space bar twice.
Yeah.
Because a space character was one of a 2-unit thing that a letter was.
Yeah.
And so I just hadn't thought of that, which I thought was interesting. And I didn't learn, obviously, why I was asking, but that became old, or was, you know, almost like a way of like, tell me you're old without telling me you're old if you do double space, because it was this habit that was taught to a group of people that are no longer, needing it necessarily because software picked it up. But I'm curious when software started enforcing the change and kind of this is now the cultural norm versus what it used to be. So I just hadn't thought of, connecting it back to the typewriter. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And
yeah, it was a technology driven thing. You know, I feel like it was actually style books that guided that. I think it was like Chicago or one of those style books that they were saying like, right, we don't have typewriters anymore, so you don't need that space to make it clear that you're starting a new sentence, etc. So I think they led kind of that part of that, but someone will Wikipedia check us, I'm sure.
Yeah. What'd you learn?
I learned, this is not going to be like the current event type one, that you're never too old, I guess, to learn the lesson that you are often better served by just being nice in a situation. I was in college, it was like freshman year, and this guy very earnestly told me this thing, which was, it's like my dad always says, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. And he said it so earnestly. I mean, first of all, it just looks like something that someone has hanging up on their wall in their like wood paneled living room. Yeah. But he said it so earnestly, like I almost laughed because I was like, who says these things out loud?
Yeah.
But I think about it kind of often, especially in a work context, right? It's very easy, I think, I shouldn't say it's easy, but it's not maybe terribly difficult to fall into a habit of like being just straightforward in feedback and criticism, and you're in a rush and you need to get this thing done, and this person is like not doing the thing that you wanted them to do in the way you wanted them to do it, and you give kind of feedback that you think puts them on the right track but really just reads like you being an asshole. And the time that it takes for you to just kind of take a step back, take a breath, give the straightforward feedback, right? It doesn't have to be like feedback that's not straightforward. It does help if it is given in a way that doesn't sound like you being mean. And that is often just more productive. Forget whether or not you want to be a nice person. Forget whether that's important to you, whatever, who cares?
Sure.
It's probably not as effective as just being, polite enough and congenial enough in that situation to make that person do the thing you want them to do and not be another blocker later in the process for you. So, it's just, I don't know, over the past, in my career, the number of times I've had to just kind of like say, hey, can we do this a different way? Because I don't think this is landing in the way you want it to, is too often. Too often.
It reminds me of, there's a woodworking thing where someone with hand tools is someone who's proficient with hand tools is far more fast than someone who has all the power tools in the world.
Oh yeah.
Which is a weird, kind of hard, but it's just that idea of like, it's the right tool, the better thing, similar enough. Kindness goes a long way. You may not feel it, may not be the fastest target or fastest way to, I'm just talking to myself right now. Cause as you were saying that, I was like, God, I can think of very distinct conversations this week where I was like, man, probably didn't heed that advice. Where were you Monday morning with that, dude?
We have a new website, productischange.com. This came out of the whole thing kind of came out of a conversation you and I had around everything that PM and PMM does. Is really kind of like managing the change of these products. And so it kind of encapsulates a lot of the stuff that we talk about here on the pod. But productischange.com, you can go there. You can learn about our guests. There's a special page just focused on our guests and how cool they are. Yeah. Anything else we want to plug?
No.
Yeah.
All Good talk. Well, as you were saying that, one of the things that's helpful, what's a commonality between both of our roles? You have to be really good at change management and helping others understand the change and walk through it. And so you came up with Products Exchange. I love it. Everything is there. I'm excited about the guests being, listed and highlighted over time. That'll be the highlight of what we're talking about. More and more people there and get connected to those folks. So make sure you check it out. If you liked anything Alex is doing with Adopt a Station, if you liked anything Anne Marie was doing in that episode a few months back with the blue microphone, all that stuff is there. People can find it easily. Check it out. Happy to have that there.
And we've had a long spell, I feel like, of episodes where we haven't had guests. That is changing soon, so we will have some guests soon. So if that's who you're really interested in hearing, why wouldn't you be? That part of the episodes come back.
Absolutely. Good to see you, bud.
Bye.
Bye.